Welcome to Learning Photography with Duck. Here's your host, Duck.
Alrighty, everybody. Let's put the oh, see, I even got the wrong title up. I'm not doing good today, am I? There we go. Today is Photoshop edition, not Lightroom edition.
And it's Monday.
It is. It was. It's been a hectic weekend for me. Some of you may know, some of you may not, but I have joined the. Well, it was always my goal when I reached a certain age that I wanted to be able to portray Santa Claus. That's why I kind of grew this out. And what I did is a year and a half ago or so, I joined the Connecticut Society of Santas. And because of my skill set, I decided to volunteer my services to the group. And we are launching our first newsletter for this spring. And all weekend long, I've been kind of working on getting that newsletter together. So it was a bit of a busy weekend for me. But anyway, I'm back. I am now in the moment. I prepped a lot of stuff for today, and I did something wrong. I couldn't back up to a place that I wanted to start off with for today. So you know what? We're just going to start fresh again. All right. Before we do that, let's do the typical housekeeping stuff. All right. Coming up through Milford Photo, we still have lots of room for the studio lighting demo. I don't know what's going on. We had like 8 people signed up, and then a bunch of people dropped out, and some people came back. Who knows? But anyway. There's plenty of spaces for the flash lighting demo. All right. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be demonstrating how to use, you can use either a speed light or a small mono light, basically just a single flash with a variety of modifiers, including literally bare bulb, with the typical reflector, shoot through umbrella, and a softbox. And I'm going to go over, the basic settings to kind of get you in the ballpark so you don't have to, fry your brain as to, what settings do I use? All right, I'm going to walk everybody through that. So if you're a little hesitant about getting into flash photography because it scares you, you get frustrated, I'm going to hopefully take a lot of that frustration off the table for you. So that's coming up on April 21st. And then that weekend, I have, it's going to be a great turnout. I got like 18 people signed up for the photo hunt on the Milford Green. What'd I do with my photo hunt? Oh, I put it back in the cabinet. Hold on. And Jill, you'll be pleased to know that I have gone and updated all the artwork. It took me a couple of days, but Jill was kind enough to give me some feedback. The last time we brought these out, and I took a lot of what she said and a couple of other people. I think Bill offered some good suggestions, and one of them was to make the cards bigger. All right, these are not standard poker size, so they're a little bit smaller. I took your advice, Jill, and decided to go with the larger poker size. All that has been done. I'm not going to print out a new deck because what I want to do, the next step is I'm going to talk to a lawyer about getting this legally protected and ready for marketing. So anyway, we're gonna go out on the 23rd. Everybody gets a chance to pick one of these challenge cards, and we're gonna have fun completing the challenge cards. Come back, share notes, share jokes, and really have a good time. So if you have not signed up for that, I suggest you do. We had a blast the last time we did this, and so anyway, about 18 people, have signed up for that. All right, enough of that. Last week, if you recall, I had set up a product on my table, and let me just kind of refresh everybody's memory. If you remember this setup here, I did last week for our our Lightroom class. So today what I did is I decided I'm not going to use that product, this product here, right here, because this product is still in development with my friend's company. They're still in development, so they haven't quite settled on the look of the logo. They haven't quite settled on the packaging. So rather than working on that, because I was going to work on a portfolio piece, I decided, you know what? I'm not going to push it with them. I'm going to do something completely different. So what I did is I shot I went to the Walmart. Almost said Kmart. Went to Walmart and picked up a little light lipstick, and I shot it. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to walk you through really quickly what I did and what was in my head, so you kind of get an idea of the process. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to use a lot of techniques that we've been covering the past several Photoshop sessions and kind of put everything together. Okay, so my concept was to have a very bright setup. Okay, I have these forms that I bought. They're a variety of shapes that you can stack and manipulate into all different kinds of forms. And what I had in mind for this was some kind of bright red background to kind of match the red of the lipstick, and just kind of like a little bit of a spotlight on the product. All right, so nothing, overly complex, I guess you can say. But what I wanted to do is, all right, so a very bright background, okay, back here, really bright. Oh, you know what? I should probably, let me share my screen. So, all right, let's go back here. Let me share my screen so you guys aren't squinting.
Doug, where do you buy your shades, your forms, your backgrounds?
Where did I get them? Hold on 1 second. The company is called, let me see, Mad Props. I think they're in the UK, if I recall. All right, it's Mad Props, and I bought their basic kit. I still got a bunch set up right here. Actually, let me move this out of the way since we don't need it. All right, so that's my setup. All right. And it comes with a variety of shapes. We got round ones. We got the square ones, which are, you know, right here. There's one that's a stair step, and we got a couple different size square ones. Half round. We got little pedestals, a little round pedestal and a little square pedestal. All right, with kind of like even a little cutout section there. And then an even smaller square pedestal. I don't know if you can see it there. All right. And, oh, I love this one, little archway. All right. It's not cheap, but they're also not that expensive. All right. So Lihia, if you're looking to do commercial photography, product photography, like cosmetics and things like that, highly recommended. They're well made. They're made out of MDF, which is a dense fiber board. Very, very nicely spray painted. And the thing they talk about is that if you want, you can actually spray paint it whatever color you need. All right. But the thing that I found out is that if you need to do a color change, you can do a color change right in Photoshop. All right. Because they're neutral. Okay. So that's the nice thing. All right. Hold on, let me share. Okay. And let me go back to Lightroom. Okay, so my initial idea was to have a very bright background, and the setup kind of in silhouette, and then a little spotlight. Right, illuminating the product. All right. So we talked about lighting last time, and what I did is I lit the background first. All right. So that's doing the same thing again. This time I lit the background first. All right. The goal being to get that bright white background. Okay. Then once I had, it was pretty much already set up from last time, so it's not like I had to do a lot of work. As you can see, I got it within one frame, all right? The next frame is I turned the back light off, and I put on the front light, okay? And the way it was angled and everything, I had it very close to the product. But as you can see, light's kind of spilling all over the place. It's not quite that spotlight look that I wanted, all right? So the next couple of shots is basically just manipulating the light, all right? And I put it more overhead, okay? And the one thing I noticed is like, okay, well, what it's doing here is it's really kind of spotlighting that pedestal, not quite the product. All right. So I said, and also, now that I kind of had that front light kind of going the way I was looking for, I decided to go ahead and turn the backlight on and do the two at the same time. And this is where things started going kind of not quite the way I planned, all right? And you're going to find this whenever you're doing any kind of project, all right? Whether it's still life or whether it's product, or even if you're working with doing a portrait, all right, you may have a concept in your head, and when you start working on it, you say, okay, well, it's not quite going the way I want, all right? And what I found is, I know I'm going to change the background color, but I'm thinking to myself, all right, in silhouette, it's still looking a little bit back heavy, meaning that I have all this light coming in from the background and it's kind of overpowering the scene. So I said, all right, well, let me see what the product's actually going to look like. All right. So at this point, I take the cover off and I expose the lipstick. All right. And as you can see, it has that chrome plated plastic tube. All right. And the next couple of steps is, all right, I kind of like the placement, all right, but now, and I took a white card, and you can see from the front, especially right in here, okay, it was too dark for me. I said, I need to kick a little bit of light in there, okay, so I took a white card. All right, and I'm kicking in some light, okay? And you can see the white card here reflected right in here. And I'm kind of liking that because now it's giving it a little bit of dimensionality, okay? But this was bothering me. What to do with that darn cover, the cap, all right? And if you notice that it says Maybelline right here, okay? So that needs to show, okay? And the thing is that it's chromed. The lettering is chromed. So that means it's going to behave like a mirror. It's going to reflect the environment around it. So in this placement, okay, if you notice in this placement, it's very white because it's reflecting the base that the lipstick is on, okay? All right, so keep that in mind, all right? So I'm saying, okay, I'm not liking the placement of that, all right? And I kicked in a little bit more light in the front. Oh, no, I placed the two cards on the side, two white cards, all right, to kind of add a little bit of a white kick on the sides, all right, to give it a little separation from the background. But if you notice, what happened is it really started kicking a lot more light into the scene, and I lost that silhouette feeling. It says, okay, well, I'm not happy with that silhouette feeling anyway, so let's just see if I can get at least the product looking good, okay? So in order to control the light a little bit, I put the snoot on with a grid, all right? And you can see right back here, I'm getting a little bit of texture from the grid on the snoot. And I'm going, oh, that is kind of interesting. I'm kind of liking that, right? So now I'm playing around with the position of the cap, and I said, oh, I kind of like that, but the text, the Maybelline label is being hidden, all right? So I decided to stand it up, and it says, oh, I like that even better, okay? And then I just rotated from here, 45. You can see that it's kind of, the angle of the lipstick is matching the angle of that base. And I said, no, let's switch it. And I went straight on. And I said, okay, I like that a little bit better. Okay. And then we got this. And you can see that now it's reflecting a little bit of my white card on the side. Okay. And then the next one, I decided to turn off that backlight, okay? And as soon as I turned off that backlight, I went, oh, wow, check that out. All right. And I'm really, really liking this effect. But as you can see, that it's very grid-like. And I'm not, that's the only thing that killed it for me. I said, I like the texture, but I'm not really in love with that texture. If it was different, maybe. Okay. All right. So now I'm experimenting with this. I like the overall composition. All right. And I took the grid off, and then bam. Now I'm liking this a lot better. Okay. And I said, okay, well, all right. What if I put just a little bit of light on the background instead of making it full white? What if I cut the background down? And I'm like, oh no, that's gross. That's terrible. I hate that. So I turned the lights back off, and I said, you know what? I'm just gonna go with that stark, bold look because it really brings out that product. Okay. And I'm pretty much now just working and playing around with the reflection on the front of the lipstick. All right. And I say, oh, I like that one. All right. And you can see that that white card is putting this strip of highlight in the front. Okay. And it's also lighting that reflective label on the cover, on the cap. Okay. And then this one's without it. All right. So now I'm looking at it and it says, well, this one stands out a lot more, but there's only one problem. It looks like it's black lettering. It does not say, hey, this is reflective. All right. So that's a problem. Okay. This one says it's silver. Okay. Or gray. But again, not really reflective. Okay. As this one, because this, you can see that there are variations between bright areas and semi-bright areas. All right. So we get the idea that this is reflective. Okay. Look at all those spots too, huh? Okay. So I said, all right, we got that. And then I took one more. All right. And it really didn't solve anything. So I said, you know what I can do, let me go back in here. I can take this one that's got the silver, all right, and this one that's got the black, and I can overlay the two and do, using Photoshop, I can do a gradient between the two, okay? I also like the highlight in the front here, okay, which is missing from this one. All right. So I decided, well, you know what? I'm just going to take the two and I'm going to use the two in combination with each other, stack one on top of the other, and just pull the parts that I need from one to use with the other. So that's what we're going to do. Okay. So that's pretty much the photo process, and it really didn't take me a long time. Let's see, the first shot was taken at 3:12. The last shot was taken at 3:51, so about 45 minutes. Okay. All right. So what I'm going to do, excuse me, I'm going to select those two. All right. I'm going to right click and I'm going to go edit in, open as layers in Photoshop. All right. Oh, before I do that, the only thing I did here was I used the transform tool, and I made my verticals vertical. Okay, so all it did is it was a slight keystoning because I'm shooting from a low angle kind of up at the product. So it was keystoning a little bit. So all that did is it just corrected that minor keystone. Okay. As a matter of fact, you can see the transform is very slight. Okay. That's all I did. Okay. And then as far as adjustments, I increased the shadows a little bit, all right, to give it a little bit more contrast. Okay. I added some texture and I added some clarity, all right, and vibrance. Okay. Because again, for me, those look really, really strong. All right. I want that red to really pop. Okay. And I wanted to get a little bit of contrast on the silver. Okay. All right. So select the two, right click, edit, and open as layers in Photoshop. Okay. All right. And what it's going to do is it's going to stack the two together, one on top of the other. All right. So the top one has, you can see the silver label and that stripe going down the center. Okay, and if I turn that layer off, the second layer has the black with no stripe down the center. So you can see that the barrel here really looks kind of flat in comparison to this one. This one has a little bit more dimension to it. Okay. And again, what we can do is we can combine the silver showing here with the black to kind of give the illusion that it's metallic. Okay. And that's a very, very simple fix. All right. So because I brought in the two, one stacked on top of the other, okay, and if I turn them off and turn them on, all right, they're pretty close, all right, but they're not quite aligned. So the one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select both. I'm going to go edit, auto align layers, all right, and I'm just going to keep it on auto, and I'm going to hit OK. And you can see very quickly it aligns the two. All right. And you can see there's a little bit of an edge here showing. So you can see that it did align the two and it just evered that little bit. Okay. So even though the camera was stationary, all right, and in one place, you know, it's susceptible to movement. Okay, so go ahead in it. All right, now we're going to get into editing this. All right, and like I said, what I want to do is I want to edit this for my portfolio. All right, I want something that's a little bit bold. All right. Something that's a little bit different that's not currently in my portfolio, and I don't have any cosmetics in my portfolio. I have shoes, I have medical equipment, I have industrial equipment, but I have food, but I don't have cosmetics. All right, so that's why I wanted to kind of put this in. All right, so the first thing is we need to analyze and look at the things that we want to correct, all right? And there are a few things that strike me right off the bat, okay? And that is this kind of stair stepping here, all right? You can see this stair step. I'm not crazy about that, all right? But these are the tools that I had on hand, all right? And I know there are certain things that I can do in post-production to fix this, all right? So what I want to do is I want to literally just take all this down here and remove it, okay? So that's going to be one of the goals. The other thing, and you can pretty much see this, all right? That really stands out. We have a seam here where I stacked one on top of the other that just looks out of place, you know? And we have one here also. It's in shadow, but it's there, okay? So that's the other seam that I want to get rid of, okay? Those are the biggest ones. And of course, we need to make that look a lot prettier, okay? Because right now, you really can't open these things until you get them home. And then you realize that there's a few flaws on there. And of course, I'm shooting on a glass table, so I have reflections going on my glass that I need to get rid of, okay? And some right here, okay? So those are the biggest things, okay? Then there are a few little minor tweaks that are just going to help emphasize the product, okay? So if we take into account the psychology of how we as humans look at images, all right? We go to things that are in sharp focus first. We go to things that are brighter first, okay? And we go to faces and eyes, obviously, all right? But there's no faces and eyes here, okay? So if we look at our product, we have this spotlight that is really pulling all our attention in, okay? But if we look, okay, we're cutting into our product. So we have this bright spot up here, all right, which I kind of like. It breaks that silhouette of the spotlight, okay? I like that effect, okay? But the problem is that the brightness is very bottom heavy, okay? It wants to pull our eye downward, not upward towards where we need to be, okay? So we need to kind of correct for this, all right? So if we look carefully at our base, and let me zoom in here a little bit. If we look here, we have a gradient going this way, and we have a gradient kind of going this way, all right, that we can work with. But we also have some reflected light coming off of our platform that everything is sitting on. So we have this light that's just kind of bouncing into it, okay? So that's adding to everything that just kind of pulls our eye down into this area, right? We need to take it and we need to bring it back up, all right? So that is going to be something that we need to address, okay? And then that's the other thing that we need to address. Look how horrendous that thing is, all right? So we have to fix this, okay? Aside from that crazy texture, let's just look at light, okay? There is a plane right here, all right, where, the lipstick is a cylinder, but there is a section that's cut out that is supposed to fit to the shape of the lips, okay? And if we look at it, we're kind of missing the definition on the front side. All right, so that's something that is also going to need to be addressed. Okay, so we have a nice gradient coming in this way here. All right, going from shadow into light, okay? But the color here and the color here are almost identical, so it makes it hard to see that there is this plane division coming along here, all right? So that's the other thing we're going to need to address. I hope you guys understand that. All right. All right. So let's tackle, first things first, spot removal. Spot removal. All right. Where do we start? All right. Well, the first thing, actually, before I even get to spot removal, what I want to do is I want to combine the two layers together, meaning that I want to take the highlight from this layer and apply it to this, all right? Because again, I want to preserve this little bit of lighting on the bottom platform that's not visible in this layer, okay? So this is our highlight layer, okay? And then this one here, this is going to be our base layer, all right? Or background layer. Sometimes I'll do capital BG for background, okay? Just so I know what's what, okay? So let's take care of these two things, okay? And the way we're going to do that is just with a very simple layer mask. Now, if I were to just click on the layer mask right down here, okay, it's going to apply a mask that shows me everything. What I want to do is I want to apply the mask that hides everything, or hides this particular layer, because I only want to bring back just a couple things, okay? So if I just click on it, it's going to give me a regular white mask, okay? That's not what I want. I want a black mask. So if I press the Alt key, option for you Mac people, and I click on that mask, it's going to give me a black mask, and that is now hiding everything on that layer. So everything on that layer is no longer visible. I'm actually seeing the layer below. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead. The Alt or Option key. If you're on a Mac, it's Option, Alt key. Okay.
That is the only thing that we just know Alt M or just the Alt key?
Oh, well, we can also do it like this. You just get a regular mask, all right? And with the mask selected, okay, mask selected, all right? And you can tell it's selected. It's got the little white corners visible, all right? If it wasn't, it would be like this, all right? This lets you know the layer is selected. That's not what we want. We want the mask selected. All we do from there is Control I, and it will invert it, okay? But doing the Alt click is just kind of like a shortcut way of doing it, all right? Okay. All right, or you can go to, what is it? Layer, invert, whatever it is, edit. I never used the, I should get, I'm always telling you guys to learn your shortcut keys.
I'm with you, I always use a shortcut. I never got to that.
But you know what? I'm always saying you guys should learn the shortcut keys. All right. I should learn the menu. All right. So that way, it is. But it'd be nice if I could point out where it is in the menu, and I fail because I'm so used to just, shortcut keys. All right. But anyway, so what I want to do is I want to bring some of that silver gray into the label here that says Maybelline. Right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get I'm going to go my brush. Okay. Brush, and I'm going to go to a nice soft round. Okay. And I'm going to just size it down, and using white as my foreground color. All right. So you can see now black is my foreground color. I could either click on that little double arrow or use the shortcut key, which is the letter X. X will toggle between the two. Okay. So we want white as our foreground color. All right. And the reason we want white is because we're going to be painting on our, I don't know how I managed that one. We're going to be painting on our mask to reveal. All right. And the other thing is we want the opacity and the flow at 100%. Okay. And right here you can see that the opacity is 20%. The shortcut keys for those are your numerical keys, the number keys on your keyboard. If I hit the number 1, it's going to give me 10%. All right. Actually, let me zoom in. 10%. All right. If I hit the number 5, it's going to give me 50%, and so on. To get 100%, you just hit the number 0. Okay. To get your flow, you use the Shift key, and you press and hold the Shift key, and then use a number. Okay. So those are very quick ways of getting your opacity and your flow to a specific level. So we're going to be at 100%. Okay. So I got white as my foreground color. All right. I have a nice soft brown brush, opacity at 100%, flow at 100%, and I'm just going to paint it in. All right. And if I paint too much, because I'm using a mask, I can use the letter X, which is going to toggle back to black, and I can paint out certain areas if it's too much. All right. And then just go back in. And what I want to do is I want to kind of give it a look that says that this is reflective. Okay. So I'm just going to paint in a little bit here and a little bit there. All right. To give that text a little bit of variety. All right. So it's not one solid color. And now I faked that reflective look. Okay. Everybody see how I managed that one? All right. Any questions so far? All right. I'm going to use the same exact technique. Okay. To move around like I just did, all you got to do is press and hold the space bar, and you can see that I have a little hand, and I can now move my canvas around. Okay, so it's a nice way of being able to work, move, and so on. Okay, so again, using a white brush, round brush, I'm going to paint in my highlight. And just like that. Okay. Let me zoom out. Okay. Without the highlights, with the highlights. All right. Okay, and if you want to look at what your mask looks like, just press the Alt key and click on your mask, and that reveals the mask. Okay. All right. So we got that taken care of. All right. So the next step is to get rid of all those spots. All right. Now, I'm not going to go too crazy because I can spend half an hour removing, all those dust particles. All right. And that's after being careful and wiping all that stuff down. It's amazing how lint just kind of clings. All right. So I'm going to kind of just show a little technique really, really quick. And then I'm just going to move on. But just realize that if this, when you're working on for a client, or in this case, a portfolio piece, you're going to want to take time and do a good job. Okay. All right. So what I'm going to do at this point, I have the highlight in place. Okay. And because now I want to do spot removal, if I were to do spot removal on these two layers, I have to bounce back and forth between the two layers to make sure I get all the spots. I don't want to be bouncing back and forth. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take both of these layers and combine them into a single layer. Okay? And we can do this a couple of ways. If I want to retain these two layers, just in case I need them for whatever reason, okay, which is always a good idea, what I'm going to do is create a stamped clone layer. All right, so what I'm basically going to do is I'm going to create a third layer that combines those two layers together. All right. If you are confident in yourself and you say, I don't need those two layers active, all right, I've done what I've needed to do, then you can just collapse the two layers into one and move forward from there. All right. It's up to you what your comfort level is. All right. What I would suggest is until you get to that certain comfort level, just do a clone stamp layer. All right. So what I'm going to do is, with the top layer selected, the topmost layer, I'm going to do Control Alt Shift. All right. For Mac people, it's Control Option Shift E. Okay. Control Alt Shift E. Okay. And what that does is it creates a layer that combines those two layers together. Okay. So now you can see I have my original layer, and right below it I have, I have my new layer, and below that I have my two original layers undisturbed. Okay. So I can always go back to those two layers if I need something for some reason. Okay. The only problem is I'm going to be doing all the work on the new stamp layer of getting rid of all those spots and everything. So going back to those original layers is kind of like a last ditch effort, because obviously you're not putting any more work into those layers. Okay. So at this point, what I can do is I can group them together and hide them, and there, I'm just got that one layer. Okay. All right. All right. With that layer selected, I'm going to go ahead and zoom in. Okay. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I normally handle spot removal. Okay. Now, we can see a bunch of the spots already. All right. So if we zoom in, all right, we can see spots. They're very, very obvious. Oh, look at this. We got a scratch there. all right, these are all very, very visible, okay? But there's also a lot of little spots that are not quite as visible, okay? And depending on what level of magnification you're at, some of these spots can be very difficult to see. So one thing that I suggest is creating what's called a check layer, all right? And I've discussed these in previous episodes, so I'm not going to go into the details of it. And I have my check layers as actions, so I can just come in and hit one of these actions. And I have one called spot removal. All right, so I just go ahead and click on that, and you can see all it is a curves adjustment with this crazy kind of like zigzag waveform. And what that does is it makes all those spots really, really stand out. Okay? All right, so at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit all the big things. All right? Just below this spot check layer, I'm going to create a new blank layer, okay? And I'm going to go ahead and use my spot healing brush, okay? Which is this one that looks like a Band-Aid with a little half circle next to it, okay? And if you don't see it, there's a little arrow there that can pull up all your other. So we're going to spot healing brush tool, okay? And I love this because it uses AI to kind of sample from the area around it in order to just fix things, okay? Oh, and the other thing you need to check, all right, notice if I do this, it's not getting rid of that spot, all right? Why is it not getting rid of that spot? All right, we got to come up here where it says sample all layers, and we want to make sure that sample all layers is active, all right? Because right now I'm working on a blank layer, all right? So what it's trying to do is it's trying to sample from that blank layer, okay? Obviously, it's not going to do anything, all right? So now we can go in very quickly. All right, just tap, 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 and I can move very, very quickly through here. All right, and get rid of all these little spots, okay? So now, that's one tool, okay? And like you've already figured out, there are multiple ways of doing things within Photoshop, all right? So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to worry about the really, really tiny stuff, right? I'm just going to concentrate on the big things, all right? There's a little here on the edge, okay? This kind of scratch here, all right? Right, because there are other techniques that we can use for the little stuff. So I'm just gonna go for all the really big, obvious spots, all right? Now, I'm not gonna spend a lot of time here. You get the gist, all right? And like I said, you're gonna want to spend time on this to make it look, you know, perfect, okay? All right, now in this area, you notice that the red of the lipstick is a very saturated color, all right? So what it's doing is it's really making it kind of difficult to see exactly what it is that I am correcting here as far as spots, okay? The nice thing about the check layer is at any time you can just hide it by clicking on the eyeball to see and work on the actual layer itself, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to very quickly, I'm just going to smooth this out a little bit. I'm looking to get rid of the big things, the big problem areas, okay? The little areas I'm not going to worry about because I'm going to take care of that in the next step, and I'll show you how to do that in a second, okay? All right, and it's just spot removal, all right? It's not doing any kind of other correction, all right? So here's some big spots here, big spots, okay? All right, a few big spots here. Okay, all right, that's one way of doing it. Another tool that comes in very handy and can also work probably a little bit faster than the spot healing brush tool is the clone stamp tool. Clone stamp tool, right? And that's this tool here that looks like a rubber stamp. Okay. The thing is, you have to be careful with how you use this, all right? Because it's not using any kind of artificial intelligence to fill in the spots like the spot healing brush tool. You are actually selecting the area to sample from, all right? So you have to be careful where you're selecting from, all right? But if we look at the gradients here on the tube here, okay, we can see that there are these columns of color, all right, that, you know, there's a little spot here, a little bit spot there, a little spot, but there are areas of clean space. And the columns are pretty much uniform top to bottom. So that gives us a little hint on how we can work, okay? So what I'm going to do is with my clone stamp tool selected, I'm going to reduce the size down, all right, accordingly. Let me zoom in a little bit here, okay? So you can see that I have my brush selected. It's still a soft round brush. I have my brush selected so that I can very easily work within this column, all right? And the way it works is you're going to press and hold the Alt key. And when you do that, you now have a target picker, all right? And so, like for example, I want to get rid of this spot right there, okay? I'm going to look at the area directly below it, and I'm going to select that area, all right? Now, the reason I'm going directly below it is because we're working in a column, all right? So that means when I come to the edge, I want to make sure that I'm sampling directly below it so I don't mess up my edge, okay? So I'm going to press the Alt key, select, tap once or click once, all right? And now I have my target area selected, all right? And again, make sure that you are on current and below, okay? And then now I come over to where that spot is and I just brush on it and it's gone. Okay? All right. Now, as I'm moving down, I have to keep in mind that my target area is just below that. If I try to get rid of something, I may be putting in something that's below it, all right? So here is where you have to pay attention, all right? I've cleared this upper section. I can now sample from the upper section, go down to that spot below it, and now I can just very quickly move down the length of this column painting on all these spots, and look how quickly I've cleared that. Okay? So let's do this bright area, okay? We got some spots up there. We got this spot here, all right? I'm going to go directly below it. All right, click. I get rid of that, all right? Brush in. Now I have that whole upper area clear. I can click above it, drop down, make my way down, and just that quickly, I've cleaned up that whole entire column. Okay? All right, so there we go. Down below, click, 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 click. And all I'm doing is I'm just tapping. All right, because I'm using a pen tablet. I'm just tapping everywhere there's a spot. Okay. Okay. Oh, there we go. Nice. Any questions on any of these two techniques? All right. What's that?
They're very lovely.
Very lovely. Okay. Now, as you are working, keep an eye on your product, all right? Because you're going to notice things that maybe you didn't notice previously, all right? And I am noticing one thing, all right? Let me zoom out just so you can see it. I'm going to zoom in. All right, remember earlier I was talking about the Maybelline label, okay? There's an issue going on here with the product interacting with the cap that I hadn't noticed previously. And Lihia, you're shaking your head yes. Can you tell me what the issue you see?
The edge of the box tapping on the cone of the lipstick. There's no definition.
There's no definition. Yes.
You don't know if it's behind. You know it's behind, but there's no
right.
It's behind.
It's an optical illusion. What we are seeing here, all right, because it's a metallic mirror finish, we're seeing the reflection of this corner. Here, we're seeing this corner reflected here, all right? And because the two are side to side, we're missing this edge, all right? We pick it up here, all right? Oops. We pick it up here, all right? But it's very questionable, okay? All right, so because that creates confusion, we're gonna need to address it, all right? And like I said, you know, that's one of those things that you may not notice right away. As you're working, you can say, oh, mental note, I gotta fix that, okay? All right, so any questions on the spot healing and or the clone stamp tool? Very simple, right? All right.
So do you think that would go, like, I can hear Dawn over here say reshooting, you know, or
reshoot what?
The image.
For what?
Or to move the box a little bit so that when you have it.
You can, well, that is going to, you need to weigh it according to two criteria, okay? Can it be easily fixed in Photoshop? All right. Would it be easier to fix it in Photoshop, or would it be easier to reshoot it? Okay. In this particular case, all right, in this particular case, it's very straight.
You can copy.
I can copy and paste and fix that super easy. So it doesn't make any sense to reshoot it, trying to line things up. And, you know, again, it also depends on, all right, did you change anything from this frame to where you are now? All right. I've moved things on that table. Am I going to spend an hour now trying to recreate that edge? All right. So in this particular case, it does not make sense. But if it was a complex product, all right, where the reflection is kind of crazy, all right, things like glass, see-through bottles, translucent bottles, where the interaction between one and the other makes it more difficult to clone out or Photoshop out than to reshoot. In that situation, I would opt to reshoot. But the thing is that with experience, you tend to have a library in your head of what items are going to create a problem. All right. And I already know from experience that whenever I'm working with any kind of glass, I'm going to shoot those things individually because I know they're going to present a problem in post-production. Okay. So usually I will have that pretty much taken care of ahead of time. Okay. All right. So, all right. Now, of course, if you only have a few spots, and you can see I'm working down this very, very quickly, all right, getting rid of all these spots, all right. But if it was a problem section where either using the clone stamp tool or the mental block here. The spot healing.
Doug, in this section, can you also do frequency separation?
I can. All right. I wouldn't for this particular one. All right. Because it's more time and effort to do frequency separation for this than it's worth. Okay. However, if I'm doing this for like a magazine, then yes. All right. Because these little micro scratches that you see here, all right, I will probably use frequency separation to get rid of all that. Okay. And at that point, you're not really retouching, you are rebuilding. All right. So that I wouldn't. But this is a complete mess. Okay. So this is where frequency separation may come into play. Okay. Just because it's just so horrendous. All right. But I'm actually going to teach you a slightly different variation. Okay. If we notice, this is all pretty much smooth tonality. All right. There's some texture going on from the unevenness of that surface, but in actuality, that should be a nice smooth surface. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to smooth out this surface. Okay. Now, for that, what we're going to do is I'm going to Actually, let me zoom out. Okay. Like I said, I'm not going to spend a lot of time doing all the spot removals. All right. But this is what this would be. All right. Spot removal. Okay. That's my spot removal. Once you are completely finished getting rid of all those little spots, make a clone stamp layer. Control Alt Shift E. Okay. And on this one, I'm just going to worry about the areas that are red. All right. And that is the top part of the lipstick and this part of the cap. Okay. Now I could have gone in a little bit more and done some more spot healing. All right. But it looks pretty darn good, right? But as soon as I bring that spot check layer, all right, we can see that there's a lot of unevenness on that layer. Okay. A lot of unevenness. Okay. So this next trick will help with some of that unevenness. Okay. So I made a clone stamp layer. All right. This is I'm going to call it my smoothening layer. Okay. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to apply a blur effect. Okay. Filter, blur. All right. And what we're going to do is we're going to do smart blur. Smart blur. Okay. All right. And what I want to do is I want to use my radius to kind of even that out. All right. And you can see how it really smooths out that whole area. Okay. All right. And about radius, let's see. Radius about 10, 9, 8, about 8 maybe. Threshold about 15 or so. I'm going to hit OK. All right. And now you can see that all those little micro scratches are now gone. All right. All those little imperfections are now gone. All right. But it does some really kind of funky things to the edges. All right. It's now looking a little bit over processed. Okay. But what we can do is we can use masks to selectively bring in these corrections. All right. So I'm going to apply a negative mask. All right. So I'm going to use the Alt key, click on the mask icon. All right. Brings in a black mask. Okay. And you notice, all right, look at the texture of my background. If I turn that mask off, you notice that all that texture is gone. It's literally applying that smoothing effect. Okay. However, that is over smoothed. All right. It's too smooth. All right. Makes it look a little bit fake. So I don't want to apply it across the board on everything. I just want to be very selective. All right. So what I'm going to do, using a soft round brush, white as my foreground color, because I'm working on a black mask, white as my foreground color. Okay. I'm going to bring my mask down a little bit. I'm going to paint in where I need to. And notice that the texture on that now has smoothed out. Okay. And if there are any little spots that need to be cleaned up, you can go back in with your spot healing or your clone stamp tool, okay? But you shouldn't have it. You should have gotten rid of all those spots in the previous step, all right? Obviously, I'm rushing through this, all right? So you're gonna see some residual spots, all right? But now, what we've done is we've taken that and we've smoothed it out, all right? So that's what it looks like before, after, all right? Let me zoom in, okay? Before, see how kind of like bumpy it looks afterwards, all right? And of course, if we want to really re-engineer this top part, I would go with a frequency separation, because now what I can do is I can redo the entire texture, get rid of all those bumps, as well as redo the color, okay? But this is, if you just need a quick and dirty way of fixing something, this is the way to do it, all right? So here on the cap, we have all these, let me turn on the check layer. We have all these little spots here, okay? I'm gonna keep that check layer on as I paint in this layer here so you can see what it looks like. All right, let me make that brush a little bit larger. See how it smooths everything out instantly? Look at that. All right. All right, but I'm staying away from the edges because like I said, it does really weird thing with edges, okay? And if you notice, all right, any like large spots, it doesn't take care of it, all right? That's why I said you want to tackle all your large spot removal ahead of time, okay? This is just for those little micro scratches. All right, very, very quick and dirty way. All right, here's all these little, let me make this brush a little bit bigger. All right, I can get rid of all these little micro scratches right along here. All right, just very, very quickly. Gives it a more of a polished look, all right? Where you apply it, it's personal choice, all right? You can see that in some areas it can get a little bit muddy, so you have to be careful, all right? All right. Check layer off, all right? Before all the micro scratches, after all the micro scratches are gone, okay? All right, any questions to this point? Very, very simple.
Very nice.
Okay, all right. Okay, so at this point, you've gotten rid of all your spots, okay? We got rid of all those bumps. We got rid of the micro scratches. We got our product looking pretty darn good, okay? Now we just need to fix those major areas that I said earlier. I want to get rid of the stair steps on the back, and I want to get rid of the seams. All right, that's my next step. I actually should have done it at the same time I did the spots, but I got carried away with showing you these techniques, okay? All right, so I'm going to create a new blank layer, all right? I'm going to call this seams. That's what we're going to tackle next, all right? And like I said, we have 3 seams. We have this one here, and this one here. All right, so it's not too bad, all right? And you already know the technique. We're going to go zoom in here. Okay, I'm just going to use my clone stamp tool. Okay, I'm going to make my brush a little bit bigger. Make sure that I am current and below. Opacity at 100%. flow at 100%, okay? And I'm going to start from the bottom. I'm going to Alt key, Option key for the Mac. I'm going to click to one side, all right? And I'm going to click right on the edge, the bottom edge, because now it gives me something to line up, all right? I'm going to use this bottom edge to line up, all right? And then when I click there, all I do is I just brush upwards, all right? Be careful with my corner. If I need to, I can resize my brush to make sure that I have that perfectly. And then just like that, it's gone, okay? Now, there's also one here in the reflection, all right? And we can get rid of it just as easily, okay? But I'm actually probably, not even probably, I've pretty much made up my mind that I'm going to get rid of the reflection, all right? So I don't need to do any touch-ups on the reflection, okay? All right. Oh, see, there's a little spot of something there that obviously because I didn't put a lot of time and effort into it. All right. Here again, this one here runs horizontally, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sample either below or above, okay? And where you sample from is going to be important based on the subject itself, all right? Let me zoom out. If you notice, we have gradients going on with our lighting. We have a hot spot here, all right, that kind of radiates this way. And as it comes this way, it falls off, not heavily, but there is fall off, all right? And of course, we have this edge that falls off really quickly, right? Which we don't have to worry about. But you have to be careful whenever there are any gradients that you sample from the proper part of the gradient when you use the clone stamp tool, all right? And this one, I don't foresee it causing too much problem because the brightness level above the line and below the line are almost identical, all right? So I'm going to use my clone stamp tool. I'm going to make it a little larger, all right, about the size of the, little larger than the width of what I'm covering. I'm going to drop just below, and I'm going to use this edge as my guide, okay? So I'm going to sample that edge, all right, click. All right, now notice as I come away, you can see the sample. I don't know if everybody can see that. Can you? Hopefully you can see it. You can see that edge sample, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that as my guide to make sure that I am lined up with that edge above, and I'm going to go ahead and click there. Now, as I paint, all right, it's locked to that location, all right? And all I do is I go in and voila, seam is gone. All right, I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Just below it, click. All right, there's my guide. I'm going to line that up with that edge. Click, and I'm going to paint that in. All right, now if I'm lucky, these two edges will line up as well, and it looks like they do, and that's good. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and fill that in. Okay, any questions? Fairly easy. Okay, and just like that, my seams are gone. Okay, so now we need to get rid of these stair steps. Okay, and this one, if I'm keeping that black background, I will pretty much do the same thing. Just sample off to the side somewhere, okay, and paint down, all right. Okay, and then as I get closer up here, I will probably sample right above it. All right, go down and very carefully start painting that in. But I don't need to do that for this particular case, because the one thing I want to do is I want to get rid of that black background and put in a red background, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a mask around my whole entire setup in order to drop that background out, okay? The nice, wonderful thing about this is that I used very geometric shapes, okay? So I can very quickly, let me just get rid of this, all right? I can very quickly use straight lines to create my mask, all right? And for that, what I'm going to do is use, I'm going to use my pen tool, all right? But what I'm going to do first, all right, because we have so many layers going on, all right, I'm going to just take all those and combine them into one. So I clicked on the top layer, shift click on the bottom, Control E, all right, and it merges everything together, okay? I don't recommend merging everything unless you are 100% sure, but I don't want to get this looking too confusing for you, okay? I just want you to focus on the tools and the techniques for doing these particular things, all right? So, pen tool, okay? We're gonna click on that. And what that does is allows us to mark a point. We click, all right? And you're gonna see a point. And then wherever we click, it's going to create a line, okay? We can also create curves, all right? From that point to the next one, if we click and hold it and drag, we can create a curve, all right? So we can very easily create round shapes as well. If you're not used to vector drawing, this can be a little bit daunting. Okay, it can be a little bit. It's what's the word? It's not intuitive. Okay. All right, but it's a great tool because you can very quickly build simple masks from it. Okay, so P for the pen tool. What I'm going to do is there's going to be a transition, all right, because we're dealing with a slightly blurred background image, okay? What we want to do is we want to split that or move a little bit into that blur, okay? I'm going to make my first point, my second point, and it draws a line. And you can see that there's a little bit of a halo on the upper part of that line. So I'm actually within, all right? And if we want a rounded area, I'm gonna click and drag, all right? And you can see it creates those little handles, all right? We just need a short little handle because we're gonna make a little bit of a curve, okay? If you need to make a change, just hit the Control key and you can go back, and at any point you can make and modify these, all right? So while you're working on it, you can make changes, all right? Now here, I've set my top mark I want to come down all the way to the bottom, all right, where this edge meets. Because what I want to do, and I'm going to, oops, make sure I have my point marked. Yeah, okay. Come down. All right. And now I put my point here. I'm not sure if that line completely does what I need it to do. That's okay. I know I can change that point later, so I'm just going to keep going. All right, we have a little bit of a rounded corner here. I'm going to come here, go around the corner, click and drag. All right, and then once my curve looks like it matches, move down here, point, same thing, make a little curve. All right. Point, move all the way to the end. All right. Now, I can just barely see this. All right. If you can't, don't be shy. Create a check layer above it to help you see it. Okay. All right, we're going to come in. We're going pressing the Control Option key for you Mac people. I'm going to move those points there. All right, before you continue, make sure that that last point you placed is selected. All right, I'm going to come up, make a point. I'm not going to bother rounding those out. A point. Come down, point, move over, point, come up, point, and drag for a curve, bring it over, point, and curve, and I'm done. Okay, so now I want to make sure that this vertical here on the right hand side is covering everything. So I'm going to zoom in here. All right. Ooh, looks like I got lucky. Look at that. It follows that edge really, really nicely. Okay. However, if for some reason you needed to change it, okay, pen tool selected, Control, I click on that point there, and I can move that point around as needed and put it in position. Okay. Now here's the wonderful thing about using the pen tool. Okay. We have now created a path. All right. And if we go over to our Paths tab, all right, and if you don't see the Paths tab, just go to Windows and Paths. Make sure Paths is selected or is active, okay? And you're going to see that it's created. Let me zoom in. It's called a work path, but look at the outline. All right, it's what I just drew, okay? I can save this for future use. The way you save it is just rename it. All right. So we're going to double click and I'm just going to go call it my background. Yeah, that's all I need. Okay. All right. The reason you need to do that is because if I go with the pen tool, all right, if I decide to do another selection, okay, it's going to get rid of that one, all right, or modify it, and then it just renders it useless. Okay. However, because I changed it, now when I go back with the pen tool, I can create a new work path and save that. So now I can pick and choose whenever I need to make a selection of that. All I have to do is come to my paths using the control key. Here, hold on. Let me go back to my layers. Let's get rid of that check layer. Paths tool. There's my background. Press and hold my control option key for Mac, and I click on that. It makes a selection. There's my marching ants. Okay. Control D. I work, do this, that, make changes. I now come up to the point where I need to make another, let's say a curves adjustment layer. And I say, oh, I can use that mask. Well, I can look for that mask somewhere in my stack, or I can just come here to my paths, control click, and there it is. Just as easy. Okay. All right. Any questions? All right. We're going to go to our layer mask with that as a selection. I'm going to go ahead and create a mask. Okay. And just like that, got rid of our background. Okay. So now what I want to do is I want to create a colored background. Okay. So we're going to go to our adjustment layers, okay? And we're going to go to solid color adjustment layer, solid color, all right? And by default, it's going to put it above the layer you were just on. I actually want it below, so I'm going to go ahead and hit cancel. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Solid color, hit OK. And I'm going to go ahead and drop it down 1. Okay. But I want a red color. Okay. So I'm going to double click on that adjustment layer. Okay. Which brings up our color picker. Now I can go ahead and select the color from here, or I can select a color from my image, which is what I want to do. So if I hover over the image, you notice I get that very familiar target. Okay. All right. That little target tool. All right. I'm going to hold it over my red, click on it, and immediately I'm selected. Okay. Now, obviously that's a little bit too bright and it's a little bit too saturated for my taste. So what I want to do is because I started off with a dark background, all right? If I change it to a light background, notice what it does to all the shadows in our image. And now we get this crazy out of place shadows, all right? So our background needs to kind of match, all right? So I'm gonna darken it by a lot. I'm gonna keep that red color, okay? But I'm gonna darken it a lot. So now that color, all right, now matches the mood of that piece, okay? But again, it kind of looks like we're floating. We're floating here, okay? So what I want to do is I actually want to darken that bottom area a lot more. And I also want to create a little bit of a vignette around this in order to pull our eye inward, okay? I want our vision to come in this way, okay? So I want to add a vignette to this background, okay? And of course, there are a couple of ways that we can do this, okay? One of the easiest ways, those of you been with me long enough know one of my favorite adjustment layers is the curves adjustment layer, okay? What I'm going to do is I'm just going to darken that background, okay? And I'm actually going to darken it so that it's, you know, almost completely black, if not black, all right? Now we can do it a couple ways. We can take it from the center and drag down, all right? And if we notice what's happening here in this part of the curve, all right, it's flattening, okay? So that means we can also take this point and bring it in this way. And it's going to do the same thing. So I'm just going to bring it in about to the 50% mark, and that's it, okay? Now, because it's above my color adjustment layer, all right, we need to reveal some of the background, all right? So we can do it a couple of ways, all right? Because I want to do a vignette, what I'm going to do is actually reverse or invert my mask. Control Option I inverts it. Now I can take a brush, okay, nice soft, well, semi-soft round brush, okay, black as my foreground color. Nope. All right, why not black? Because I'm working on a black layer. We want to reveal it. So white as my foreground color. I'm going to click, and using the shift to shift key to restrain it, I'm just going to, too far. Basically just paint across, okay? And because I'm using a nice soft round brush, all right, I can even create a gradient, okay? And if that's too much, we just invert it, X to invert, and we can paint back some of that edge, all right? So where you put it, it's entirely up to you. But now you notice that it no longer looks like it's floating, okay? Before it looked like it was just floating there. Now we've grounded it, okay? Okay. And then now what I want to do is I want to create a little bit of vignettes. Okay, so we can take our brush, okay, nice large brush, and we can paint it. And if you're careful, oh, it'd be nice if I had the right color, white, we can very, very quickly add a vignette, okay? The other way we can do it is we can get a gradient tool, our gradient tool, right? Make sure that we got foreground to transparent. Make sure white is our foreground color, and then click and drag into our scene. All right. It's not as intuitive, because we really can't see what's happening until after we've let go of our mouse, all right? But that's another way of creating a vignette, okay? And of course,
reduce the opacity of the vignette?
You can, all right? If you feel that's too much, we can take the opacity down, all right, and it's going to bring back some of that underlying color, all right? But in this particular case, I want to make it dark. The other way we can do this is, okay, I'm losing a little bit of that red, so I can go back to my color fill layer, and I can modify my color, all right, make it a little bit brighter, okay? So now it's really starting to stand out. We can also go to our vignette, all right, and we can control how much just by adjusting our curve, okay? So you have a lot of flexibility here, okay? But I like that heavy vignette. That's kind of what came to mind, okay? The one thing that really strikes me, though, is that we have this spotlight here, all right, that comes off, all right, And if we were to follow it, that spotlight would probably be like this, right? Okay. So it'd be nice if some of this light spilled beyond our edge onto the background. Okay. So keeping that in mind, I'm going to create another adjustment layer, curves adjustment. Okay. This time what I'm going to do is I am going to brighten my background. Okay. Brighten the background. And just like previously, take a look at this section here. Notice how it's flattening out. Okay. We can do the same thing by grabbing that point and moving it towards the center. It's going to do the same thing. It's going to brighten. Okay. And because it's a light, I want to brighten it by quite a bit. Okay. So now it brightened the entire background. That's not what I want. I'm going to go ahead and invert, Control I. And with a brush, all right, maybe not so big. All right. And probably not so soft, maybe about 25%. I'm going to go ahead and paint in that little bit of an edge here. All right. Keeping in mind that, all right, we have a transition going from something in the front to something in the back. Okay. So if we look at where this light goes across here, when it gets to this side edge, it actually drops down to about there. All right, so we want that background not start here, but start here. Make sense? Okay. And we're going to do the same thing over on this side. We're going to create a little bit of a spotlight there. Okay. I can also use my opacity. All right, so I can go to like 20%. And I can soften that edge out a little bit if I want to. Okay. All right. Now, we're picking up a little bit of that background. All right. That background that we darkened our base, it's creeping up right in here. We can see some of that there. So I'm going to need to go back to that mask, which was, we'll call that our vignette. All right, we go to our vignette mask. Okay, make sure our mask is selected. Black now as our foreground color. I'm just going to get rid of that and make it 100%. Okay, we're going to get rid of that. There we go. So now that background shadowing is, that vignette shading is not affecting it. Okay. All right. How are we doing? All right. We're almost done. The last thing I noticed, okay, is that we have this crazy transition here. Okay. Crazy transition. All right. So what I'm going to do is above everything, I'm going to create a new blank layer. Okay. And I want to work within the constraints of that mask. So the mask is right below me. All right. So I can just go to that mask using the control key. I click on that mask. I bring my marching ants back. Okay. So now, if I were to paint, notice that it only paints within the inside of that mask, nothing on the outside, right? All right, so we're going to use that to our effect. All right, so I'm going to make my brush very, very small, all right, because I just want to darken that little bit of an edge, okay? And I'm going to tap at the top, okay? I'm going to scroll down. All right, and using the Shift key, which is going to constrain it, I'm going to tap on the bottom, and it's going to draw a straight line. Okay, and notice that it came in a little bit below it. All we got to do is take our eraser tool and just remove it from that bottom section. Okay, I get rid of the marching ants, and now I have that little bit of a shadow. Doesn't quite match. I'm going to change my blend mode to multiply, and I'm going to bring the opacity down until it kind of sort of matches. All right, about 30% looks pretty good. All right, and if it's too much up there, I can just go ahead and erase a little bit where the overlap is. All right, and now we don't have that hard edge. Okay, and if I need to, I can soften it up even more. Okay, all right. Obviously, there's a lot of things that still need to be done to this. Like I mentioned, what I would do is I would take and darken it from here going upward, so we have dark, 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 and we get a gradient. Dark, dark, dark going this way. All right, just so that we get light here, dark here. All right, but we're running out of time. I don't want to keep you guys, and obviously I would clean that up, make it a little bit softer. All right, we can do that just by adding a little bit of feather to our mask. Okay, but hopefully that gives you some new tools to play with. Let's go to here. All right, so we covered the spot healing brush, the clone stamp tool. All right, I showed you how to use a blurring technique to kind of get rid of those micro scratches. The pen tool to very quickly build very simple masks, all right, that you can modify, how to save them so that you can use that later. How to use adjustment layers, the curve adjustment layers to create a vignette and to create a spotlight. Okay, any questions?
Can you hear me?
There's a lot in there.
I can, yeah, you're a little low there, Carol, but I can hear you.
Oh, okay, because I tried it a couple times. I unmuted and I tried to talk, but I guess you didn't hear me. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm sorry I didn't.
Laptop. I don't know. And I also have one of these.
Oh, I can hear you better now.
Oh, is I talking to this? Can you hear me?
Yeah, very clearly now.
Oh, I didn't know I could talk into this. I thought this
What
was
is this?
for hearing.
What is this? I'm seeing you from here up.
It's an iHome.
You're okay. Yeah. That's your microphone.
It's a really loud speaker, so I was always talking into my computer. I didn't think I could talk into this.
Oh, cool.
But anyways, yeah, so I can't remember what the things now I wanted to say, but
Sorry.
okay, that's
Yeah.
fine.
Now you know. Keep that next to you.
Okay.
All right, Alan, you had something?
Nope, you went through an awful lot, that's for sure.
All right. I don't know if you're trying to tell me something, Bob. You're muted.
I can't remember all that.
Well, it's recorded. It'll be uploaded to YouTube later. So,
Maybe I can review it then. And
yeah. But you know what? Like I said, I tend to, give out a lot of information. But I tend to repeat myself. So hopefully over time, things will start gelling. And it's like I said, it's like that jigsaw puzzle. You look at the jigsaw pieces long enough, eventually they start making sense, and then you get that aha moment, and the pieces come together, and then you go, celebrate!
How stupid can I be?
No, not at all. Not at all. It's all part of the learning process. So.
Doug, I was wondering if you could consider sending us your action for the check layer. I know you showed us how to do it, but that was a while ago, and I forget.
Okay, yeah. Actually, I don't know if I think I may have put them on the Patreon page. I'll take a look.
Okay.
But yeah, to be honest, most of the check layers that I stole. Pixin Perfect, Unmesh Dinda. If you haven't watched any of his YouTube channels, it's definitely a go-to. He's a better teacher than I am. All right,
No.
but he tends to break it down one tiny little piece at a time. All right. Where I like to kind of show where all those pieces kind of fit together. So, all right. But yeah, I'll make it a note to put the actions into a little shareable file.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Okay.
Actually, I better write that down before I forget. Check layer actions. Okay. All right. Any other questions?
Well, it's just a matter of going and jumping into the water and see how much we can do.
Yeah.
Just follow the notes and the
Yeah. But, like I showed today, there's typically more than one way to accomplish a task. All right. I kind of concentrated on 3 different ways of doing that spot and scratch removal. Okay. But there are others. I didn't get into frequency separation because that's kind of a little bit more complicated. All right, so maybe next time I'll do frequency separation because that one is a really powerful tool, okay? But I like to teach that once you've gotten a little bit of a foundation with some other things because it borrows very heavily on, these prior techniques, okay?
I love the blur technique, like the invert mask and the blur technique.
Yeah, it's very quick and dirty. All right, so it's not something that you're going to use all the time, but there are times where that really works because it destroys texture. All right, so if you're trying to remove micro scratches from something that has texture, it's not going to work. Okay. But there are other ways of working around that. That smoothing blur works very, very well with frequency separation. Okay. A lot of frequency separation uses Gaussian blur, but I find that if you use that smooth blur, you get a slightly different effect because it doesn't quite, you can push the blur a little bit more without getting the halos that you do with frequency separation using Gaussian blur. If you put too much Gaussian blur, you start getting some funky halos. So anyway, thank you guys for joining me on another Monday evening. Again, don't forget, oops, wrong one. Don't forget, Thursday, April 21st, lighting workshop on Zoom. And then that Saturday, Milford Green photo hunt. All right. You have to go to Milford Photo meetup page to sign up for either one of those. Okay. All right. I think I mentioned it, maybe not last week, but the week, the meetup prior. I had talked to my neighbor who is into cosplay, Spider-Man and or Deadpool, and I actually put up a poll on the Facebook page, and I think the majority of people said Deadpool, or yeah, I think the majority is Deadpool. So, anyways, he's very excited.
You might want to check that. That's what I thought tonight. But anyway, when is it?
I haven't set a date. It'll definitely be, when the weather is a little bit on the warmer side. But he's very excited. I want to see if we can get his brother. His brother is younger, but he's bigger. He's husky. All right. And he would probably be really good at playing the heavy, so we can have Deadpool fighting the heavy. All right. I think we get a kick out of that. So anyway, that's in the works. I want to do some outdoor flash photography like we did last year in New Haven, where we get a couple of models and we, use a portable flash, a simple modifier, and we take some outdoor portraits. Okay. Want to do some street photography too. So stand by. We'll be doing this. All right. Especially now that COVID is starting to be behind us. So, okay.
Hey, thanks, Doc.
All righty, guys. Be safe.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for watching Learning Photography with Duck. Brought to you in association with Milford Photo, your local full-service camera store. Located in downtown Milford, Connecticut, Milford Photo offers you a personalized shopping experience. From the latest camera gear to printing and framing services. And, of course, educational workshops to teach you the finer aspects of photography. Don't forget to tell them Duck sent you.